Episode 1. Hello, wonderful people of places! My name is Amanda Snowflake, and I review manga. Chances are, if you're watching this video, you know what that is, but on the off chance you don't, it's essentially anime comic books. In fact, most anime is actually based off of manga. I do 2 different series starting now involving manga. Magical manga and maddening manga. Maddening manga is reviews of poorly done manga, mainly constructive in nature, but occasionally infuriation-based. Magical manga is essentially me drooling over the manga I like, explaining why it works, and just generally being a total fangirl. I like magical manga a lot. Today we're reviewing a gay love story titled Gravetown. It's free to read legally in English at the site below. So, we open our comic with, narration. Don't get me wrong, narration can be a good tool in storytelling, just as long as it adds to the story, but it's very hard to work narration in a way, in a visual medium, in which it does so. Usually narration is used to tell you what's happening and not show you what's happening, which works in literature but doesn't work in a visual form. Which sparks the question, does it even have a place in comic/manga? I would argue yes, but only if used in good taste, such as with a contrast to what's being narrated versus what's being shown at added effect of irony, or something like that. If you have visual and narration, you can use it to your advantage and show it in a way that actually builds upon each other. But here, it's literally not doing any of that, at all. Number 1 rule for storytelling: show, don't tell. Anyways, we learned about our protagonist Vincent and that apparently he is not a happy camper. He also smokes, wears a tight fishnet vest, and is Elsa. Twink. Just kidding, but he does have ice powers, or snow powers, or whatever. His friend approaches him, and we get adorable gayness. Literally adorable gayness. This is one of the few aspects of this manga I really like, how well done the romance is. I love BXB, aka Boy Loves Boy Ships, especially when they're well done, and this comic is well done in regards to that aspect. Usually whenever we see any sort of boy love in manga, it's yaoi, which has its place, as does all literature, but only having that available makes a bit of an issue for anyone who actually wants to see actual gay representation. And for everyone in the comments saying, this is a yaoi, let me explain the difference between yaoi and shonen ai. Yaoi, though not always, is usually aimed at a strictly female audience, and essentially is fetishization of gay men. Now, it's not always fetishistic, but it normally is. This comic is shonen ai. Shonen ai is a genre of manga about gay men that is usually aimed at gay men. So basically, one is for the types of people it's about, and the other is fetishization of the types of people it's about. Look, I don't hate yaoi. In fact, it's a guilty pleasure of mine. However, it's very problematic from a critical and queer standpoint, and I come from both. So yes, this is not yaoi, or at least I'm assuming it's not, because it's not fetishistic, and the creator even says it's shonen ai. Next up, we get a touching scene with exposition. I hate exposition. I don't know if it's the translation, because this manga is not originally in English, or if it's the phrasing of the original writing. However, it's supposed to be a touching scene that we're being shown right now. Yet, we're not shown the dramaticism of it all. It's telling again, not showing. Which anyone who knows anything about literature knows is not a good thing. The main issue with this manga I have particularly is that it doesn't present the dialogue well, which I really chalk up to the translation. You could have the best story in the world in a botched up translation and everything would go wrong for you. Like, everything else about this manga is okay. The art is really great. It's stylistic and preferable enough to be manga. The characters express themselves well, the boxes are generally nice to look at, and the phrasing itself is decent. Plus, I love their character designs. And these boys are my gay children. Yes. Lost and Vincent are my children. I have decided it. It is so. So after that touching scene, we see a creepy guy follow Vincent into school, and then Vincent gets attacked by this thing that I'm showing you on screen, and I love it. This thing's design is, well, look at it. Yes, awesome it is. Then his boyfriend Lost gets knocked out. Lost, wonder if he likes islands. Then the first chapter ends. Because this book has yet to come out with a full volume in English, we're only going to review it up until it's finished in my language, which means up until chapter 8. Given this thing hasn't been updated since 2012, I don't think we'll ever get beyond that, unfortunately. Like Yu-Gi-Oh!, which came before it, I'm just using this as an example, it has nothing to do with Yu-Gi-Oh!, it doesn't matter how good your story is if you have a terrible translation, which this story does. So I doubt it'll come out with more volumes, but generally, I speak 2 different languages. I speak English and Japanese, and yes, we will eventually talk about Japanese on this show. I like the story of this, but it doesn't matter how good its story is. If you have a botched up translation, this is coming from me who speaks Japanese and English, it doesn't matter how good your story is, if you have a terrible translation, that message won't get across. So yes, my main issue with this manga is its translation, not so much it itself, but the translation should have at least been supervised and approved before, instead of just automatically done so on the website. Next scene, we see something awaken inside Vincent. Ooh, spooky! And pretty much he kills the bastard that attacked his boyfriend. Then we get our antagonist, Farfolio. Okay. And his dialogue should be split up into multiple bubbles, but again, this is a translation, so I'll let it slide. Now let's take a break from this review to marvel in the world building of this manga. Yes, the dialogue is really, really, really off and not that great. However, the manga itself is pretty decent. Let me explain. The plot is what gets me. It's really well done. It's just the way the English dialogue is executed. It's just not the best and kind of boring, TBH. You could have the best story in the world, but again, bad translation, and it's essentially going to be terrible no matter what. We get a really cool dream sequence, and it's kind of cliched. Next up, some random guy approaches Vincent and tells him to seek out his real parents. I hate the way this is phrased. I'm adopted. Yes, really. And my adopted mom is my real mom. She may not be my birth mother, but she is my mother. She raised me. She cares for me. She occasionally gets mad at me like any parent should. So sorry, manga, but saying real parent as refers to birth parent is kind of insulting. Next up, we get a demon attack, and then I kind of get lost through the pacing and translation. As you may have noticed, this review is kind of all over the place because I'm trying to talk about the manga's flaws while also talking about its story, and the story is all over the place. It's really hard to follow. Again, this is due to the translation, but it's the author's fault for approving a translation so poorly done. Next chapter isn't translated, so I guess we'll end the review here. So what do I think of Gravetown? Like it. It was okay, I guess. The translation was just botched up for me to understand what was going on, and the character's emotion plot is convoluted, and all things just sort of happen. Nothing really goes anywhere. I like the ideas and presentation of such, however, it needs to know where it's going, and from what I've seen so far, it doesn't know. I don't hate it or anything like that, even though it's on Maddening manga. However, this manga needs a new translation and a lot of work. See you next time